Good afternoon. Hi, 10 George Realty. We're very excited. We have a wonderful seminar presented by Savan. I will let him do further introductions. He is an attorney, and I'm going to pass the camera over to him and share screen. So thank you for attending. You're in for a good seminar today.
Right. There it is. Thank you very much for that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Welcome. I'll just flip on the screen. See if this works. There it is. Okay. All right. The Zoom camera's on. All right. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your patience. I'm coming from Glendale. In my mind, I thought it was this short. It's actually this long. So I was on Sierra Madre for what felt like forever. Anyway, thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate it. Today I'm gonna do a quick presentation and you guys are gonna have a lot of questions, okay? I'll answer all of your questions, but please don't ask personal questions. You know, my mom has a trust and, you know, I hate my sister, what do I do, okay? So I hear it all the time. So, but today's presentation is for you to share and share it with whomever you want, doesn't matter. I'm going to be flipping to the Chrome. I'm going to show you some things on the internet on how to find some information, okay? So I usually do this presentation as well at CAR in Long Beach or Anaheim. So if you ever see my name on there, you can join the seminar over there. So this is an important topic that I usually go through different brokerages and I train people. I think it's important because because I'm a bankruptcy attorney and I do trusts, okay? That's all I do, all right? If you're on Instagram, you can follow me. My Instagram handle is on there. It's kind of small. It's just BK Trust Lawyer. I couldn't think of anything more creative. So it just says Bankruptcy Trust Lawyer. So from my experience, I've realized that there's only a small group of people among agents and loan officers that understand how bankruptcy auctions work and how probate auctions work. So I thought, let me go around and teach people, because I'm also a teacher. I teach at I'm a professor at CSUN. So that's pretty much it. So that's a little bit about me. So this is the title of today's topic. And if anyone on Zoom has questions, we'll also get to those. All right. Flip on this screen. Okay, so these are the topics I'm going to cover today. All right. Let me stand in front of it. So I'm going to give you my opinion about what I think is happening in the economy and why people ask me. I'm going to show you how to find deals in bankruptcy, deals in foreclosures, and how beneficiary buyouts work out when people fight over a trust. And I'm going to show you how to think a little creatively when it comes to making deals in real estate. Okay. So let me pause for a second. And let me just tell you my opinion about the economy. And I've always found it interesting why people ask me, and people do ask me, they're like, you know, so how's the economy? You know, I'm like, I'm not Jerome Powell. How the hell do I know? You know, I just get in my car and I go home. But I realize why people ask is because I'm a banker, because part of my practice is bankruptcy. So they want to know who's filing bankruptcy. Are bankruptcies increasing? You know, what's happening? So I'm like, oh, okay, now I know what people ask me. So I'll tell you, this is my opinion. The bankruptcies are increasing significantly, okay? In the last year, 2024, I filed as much bankruptcy cases up until August of 2024 than I did all of 2023. This year, 2025, if my bankruptcy software is correct, I should be filing as many cases up until end of June than I did all of 2024. So it's basically double, okay? So that tells you that people are filing a lot of bankruptcy. Now, and I'll tell you where the opportunity exists for you. I'm not here to make you sad, but I'm here to tell you that there's a lot of people that are struggling. You know, we have layoffs, we have businesses that are closing. So I deal with a lot of SBA loans that people can't pay. Where the opportunity exists, and I don't want it to sound like, you know, we're vultures, you know, that, oh, you're suffering, let me come help you. But there are people that do need help, especially those that own properties. Because when people are facing financial difficulty, they want to try to keep their home. That's their home. But there comes a time when you just can't afford your home. You can't afford the payments. The 3-2-1 buy down dreams are over. Now the loan has reset. Okay, they're like, oh my God, my payments are up to this much dollars. So what I always tell my bankruptcy clients, they come back, they say, I'm 11 months behind. I have a client who has not paid their mortgage for 40 months. 40 months of, I don't want to say free rent, but 40 months of non-payment. They did loan modifications, they did this. So 40 months. So that balance has accumulated. And the lender has tried to foreclose many times. They go into bankruptcy, come out. So sometimes, I just tell people, I said, look, you just can't afford your home. Okay, so you're gonna have to move. So the choices people have to make is either I lose the home to foreclosure and I get nothing, or you sell the damn thing and you get some money. Okay. So that's where the opportunities I think are gonna arise is, I think, now I could be wrong, but my wife always tells me I'm always wrong. Okay, I'm used to it. So where I think is gonna happen is people are gonna start selling more, okay, because they just can't afford it. What's going to be interesting is I think it's going to be those people that bought during COVID, at the height of the market where, I'll pay 300,000 overpriced. Well, the 3-2-1 buy down is over and it's time to pay. So I think people that have bought during 2019 through 2021 are the ones that are going to be reselling it because it has accumulated enough equity that they can get some money rather than lose it to foreclosure. So that's basically my opinion of the economy. Now let's move on to some topics. All right. So this slide is very simple, but it provides a very important concept for you to always keep in mind of how title is vested and why it's important to know the difference between tenants in common and joint tenants. Okay, so if you remember from your real estate exam, maybe you bubbled in the right answer. So the main difference between a tenant in common and joint tenancy is in a joint tenancy, when one of the joint tenants passes away, their 50% goes to the surviving joint tenants. The benefit of that is it does not go through probate court. Okay, probate court is a scam in America. Okay, yeah. And I'm going to tell you, yes, who says yes? Yes. Biggest scam in the world. Yeah. So now, the way you avoid it is it goes to the surviving joint tenant. The key is you got to make sure that that last surviving joint tenant has a trust, which I'm going to get to. Because if the last surviving joint tenant dies, then that property goes to probate court. And for those that don't know what probate court is essentially a court process where a judge says who gets your properties and what happens, okay? Eventually it goes to your spouse and your kids, but it takes 9 months and it takes a lot of money. Plus, all the debt you owed has to be paid before your kids get the property. Do you know who is the number one creditor that shows up in probate court and says to the kids, give us the money before you get the house? Who? No, the lawyer. People say the IRS, The IRS is there saying, hey, your mom and dad owed us a tax bill. And the probate court will not let the kids get $1 million house before you pay off mom and dad's bills. So you want to avoid that whole probate court process. The number one creditor that shows up with a gun, okay, I'm figuratively speaking, is Medi-Cal, okay? Medi-Cal shows up, okay, and says, we spent $200,000 on your mom in hospice. Give us the money back before you get her $1 million house. Now, conceptually, it makes sense. We spent money on mom. Why is it fair for you to get a paid off $1 million house as a child? So you got to pay off Medi-Cal. So it's called the Medi-Cal recovery lien. So Medi-Cal is the first one that shows up and says, give us our money back. So the goal is to avoid probate court. There's few ways to do it. One of them is the joint tenancy. The second way is through a trust, okay? So I'm going to get to it. So married couples should have joint tenancy. So if a client asks you, how should we take title? If you're married, joint tenancy. Why? Because when I die, my 50% goes to my wife and vice versa, okay? You don't want to have investors hold title as joint tenancy. The reason is because if, let's say, 3 of us in here, we buy this commercial property and we hold it as joint tenants. I'm a 1/3 owner, right? When I die, a tenancy in common means my 1/3 goes to my wife and my kids. It doesn't go to the surviving tenants in common. That's the big difference. the reason why that's important for investors is if we hold it as joint tenants, as investors, when I die, you guys get my 1/3. Do you know who's gonna come yell at you? My wife, okay? She yells at me from 7 a.m. till 9:30 till I take the kids. So she's gonna come and say, where is my husband's 1/3 share of this building? You have to say, well, it was held as joint tenants, so we get it. And, she's gonna yell and scream and say, no, that's supposed to come to us, that's my husband's share. So investors need to hold title as tenants in common. So my 1/3 goes to my wife and kids, you guys still keep your 1/3, okay? So, okay, so that's something to just keep in mind, right? I see a lot of investors holding title as joint tenants. Bad idea. All right, now let me talk to you a little bit. Hold on, before I go to the next screen, because everyone just ends up reading the screen and doesn't listen to me. So the next slide, I'm going to talk to you how judgments work and where opportunity exists for you with respect to judgments. From my experience, whenever someone says, hey, I want to get into real estate, I want a real estate deal, there's a lot of investors that are not actually looking for the physical real estate, the property, okay? I'm going to punch this wall. They're not looking for the building itself. Maybe it's out of their budget, but there are deals with respect to the property which involves loans, okay? When there's second loans on the property, when there's a judgment on the property, and I'll show you where the opportunity exists for your investor clients. So let me and I'll go to the next slide. Let me explain how judgments work, okay? You may have judgments against you. You may have family members. I'll show you how to find judgments coming up. So let's take American Express, okay? So if you owe American Express money, you don't pay them, you're going to go into collections. Eventually, American Express will sue you, okay? And the attorney is right here in Pasadena, Aaron Baldero, okay? Very nice guy. He calls me, yells at my clients. I call him and I complain about Amex. Very good guy. American Express is super aggressive. So once they sue you and they get a judgment, let's say $20,000, the way they collect on their judgment is if you're working, they come and they garnish your wages. If you have money in your bank account, they come take the money in bank account. If you have real estate, they record that judgment against your property. Now, I have a lot of people tell me, it's okay, I don't have any properties, I'm basically judgment proof. I say, yeah, but you may not be judgment proof in the future. Do you know how long judgments are good for? Anyone can take a guess?
10 years.
I heard 10 years.
7.
7. So throw out random numbers. It's 10 years, but you can renew for another 10. For 20 years, Aaron Baldero is going to be a pain in your butt. So you may not have something now, but in 20 years, if you buy real estate, he's going to come and find it and put that judgment on it. Now, what does Aaron Baldero actually do? Does he come chase you for 20 years? Does she buy? No. You take that judgment and you go to the county recorder's office and you record that judgment with your name and the last 4 of your social. And that judgment just floats in the county. Okay, it just waits. The second you close escrow and the grant deed says, Michael Tran, social 1, 2, 3, 4. And if it matches Aaron Baldero's judgment from 1998, it's going to attach to your brand new property. The same thing will happen to your clients, and I'm going to tell you how to protect your clients coming up. Once the judgment attaches finally to your property, the county sends it to you. It's called a notice of involuntary lien. You're going to get and it's going to be a copy of the judgment. So that's how judgments work. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the next slide, which explains everything I just rambled on. Okay. So now that you know judgments are good for 20 years, does anyone know what percentage a judgment earns? Let's say the judgment is $10,000. What's the percentage that you will earn on the judgment? Anyone
What do you mean percentage and what?
Interest.
Oh, interest, okay.
Interest.
About 12%?
I heard 10 and 12. It's 10.
What do you mean by earn?
The $10,000,
Oh,
just like a loan, 10% interest.
Oh, okay.
So American Express, the $10,000 judgment gets 10% a year.
15%.
10%.
10%.
It's 10%, yes. So that $10,000 judgment becomes $20,000 in 10 years. So clients tell me, wait a minute, I only owed Amex $6,000. Why is it $26,000 now? Well, Aaron Baldro put all his legal fees on there, earns interest, so now you owe $26,000.
Is it
So-
interest and compound or simple?
Great question. So his question is, is it simple interest or is it compound interest? It is compound interest.
That is
yes.
7 years.
So-
Up with every 7 years.
Every 7 years?
Yeah, but 10% you double every 7 years.
There you go.
Wow.
Very good. I went to public school. I apologize. I can't do that now.
Okay, so if somebody doesn't pay, let's say they lost their job, whatever hardship, and you file for bankruptcy, they cannot do a judgment, it's unsecured debt.
Well, we're not talking about bankruptcy.
Oh, that's.
I'm just talking about judgment.
They're not doing, okay, okay.
Yeah.
But there's a way to protect yourself.
Yes, of course. Yes. But we're not talking, I'm just talking about how judgments work.
Okay.
So what you're gonna remember from today, judgments are good for 10 years and it earns 10% a year. Okay, it's crazy. So, all right,
I
now,
have a question.
yes,
Aren't credit cards unsecured? They can't put a lien on your property though?
credit cards
Because you
can't
don't
put
need
a lien on
collateral
your
to open it
property.
up.
But once they sue you for the debt and they get the judgment, they can put the judgment that you owed us for credit card debt
On your property.
on your property.
Wow.
So now, once that judgment lien is recorded, you get a notice of involuntary lien. Let me tell you, one of the worst things you can experience is when you help a client buy a house and you close escrow, and less than 30 days later, your new buyer gets a notice of involuntary lien, they're gonna call you and yell at you. What is this document? So not only do they not want to get the Cutco knives, they also don't want to get a judgment lien on their property, okay? Usually I said there's a Cutco knife representative that wants to kill me. So the way you avoid this situation is you gotta ask your clients, and I'll tell you how to do it both on the seller side and on the buyer side. So I'm gonna tell you what this slide means very shortly. Now, let's say you represent the client and there is a judgment lien on there, but they're getting ready to sell the house. The prelim title report will show you got this loan, United Wholesale Mortgage, and it's gonna say judgment lien, American Express. If you go to sell that property, the escrow company is gonna tell Aaron Baldro, put in the demand to pay off your judgment. And he's gonna sit there with his thumbs and type out all the interest, and it's compound interest, and he's gonna say, our payoff is $36,000, some big stupid number. The way from the seller side, you help protect your clients is you don't list the property before you negotiate and you pay off that judgment lien. So when your client, or if the prelim says there's a judgment lien, what you need to tell your client is, let's try to pay off this discovered judgment or whatever it is before we list the property. Because if you list the property and Aaron Baldro knows you're gonna sell your property, he's not gonna take a discount. But if you call him beforehand, or your client calls and says, oh, I saw this judgment lien on there, it's $36,000. Can we pay you $20,000 and you can take off the judgment? He's happy to take your money because he's tired of waiting for you to sell or refinance. So they're gonna say, are they selling, not selling? It's none of their business. So from the seller side, you can negotiate and pay off that judgment. They've been waiting for a long time. And once they're paid off, they will remove their judgment. Then you list the property and the judgment will not be paid because it's already been negotiated. Okay, any questions from the seller side? Okay, so if you see a prelim that has a judgment for your sellers, your advice to them is, hey, maybe you should try to settle this judgment before we list the property. Otherwise, I mean, would you take a discount if you know your client is selling? No, I wouldn't. Now, let's look at it from the buyer's side. So you have a buyer that's looking for property. There's a very uncomfortable question you should get comfortable asking, especially in this economy, okay? The uncomfortable question you should ask your buyers is, have you been sued in the last 5 or 10 years? Are you aware of being sued by anyone? And hopefully they'll tell you, oh yeah, Amex sued me in 2009. That's a clue to you that, oh my God, you may have a judgment that's floating in the county under your name. So if they tell you, yes, I've been sued before, this is a website, this is the LA Superior Court's website, okay, which is in my slides, and you guys will get my slides. So there's a way to search under people's names to figure out if they have a judgment. You could search it for yourself, for family members. I've searched my entire family members. So I always love going to Thanksgiving. I said, I know so much about you. So this screen is not very clear, but what this screen is showing you is there is a way, and it costs $1 on the Superior Court's website. You do what's called a case search, and it says, because it's all public information. It says, what do you want to search? Party name. Okay, what's the last name? You put the last name, first name, and you hit search. And that's going to pull up all lawsuits from like 1991. They go back for a long time. So once you pull it up, you can say, oh my God, I see in 2017, American Express sued you. And when you click on that link, it's going to give you the case history. I know it just looks like verbiage, but it tells you when did they file the complaint, what happened, and you'll see the words judgment entered May 16, 2014. So you know, you could tell your client, there's a judgment out against you. So we got to be careful not to close escrow under your name, unless you maybe call American Express before you close escrow for your buyer. So you call American Express and say, hey, we want to negotiate this judgment you have out there. They don't know you're about to buy a property. They says, oh, we've been waiting for you to buy something. We've been waiting for you to work. So sure, we're happy to take a discounted amount. So your client will just pay, it's very simple. You just call them and say, can we negotiate? You go back and forth on a number and you pay them off. Once it's paid off, there's no more judgment. Then you can help your buyer close and this judgment is not there anymore. Yes.
As a real estate agent, you can call on behalf of a client. There's nothing to do with principal.
That's you don't want to get into, practicing law. I don't think that's practicing law. You're just helping your client. And there's no problems with your client, him or herself, calling Aaron Baldero and saying, I got this case number, you guys have a judgment, we want to negotiate the payoff. That's not legal advice. That's just calling and helping settling a debt. So, and he'll say, okay, how much you want to offer? Do you have a real estate? No, So once that's negotiated, then they'll take that payment. And then Aaron Baldero will file a satisfaction of judgment. That says this judgment is now paid. Then you can buy the property and don't worry about the judgment attaching.
How long does that take to post? the judgment?
I would say the
Satisfied.
soonest will be 2 weeks.
Oh,
Yes,
fast.
yeah, they go pretty quickly.
Oh, okay.
So, now obviously I'm making it sound more easy than it is. Does your client have $8,000 to pay Aaron Baldero? I don't know, So if they don't,
Yeah.
then what's the good point of trying to settle? Okay, yes.
Question. Let's say we buy a house right now, 2025, okay?
Mhm.
And we find one in 2012. We thought about it was 10 years. So the 10 years already expired.
Correct,
So
yes.
they don't
So
have
that
to pay.
judgment's not good, yes.
Yes, President.
Correct. So the judgment is only good for 10 years unless they have renewed. They can renew the judgment.
I understand.
So if,
Any chance people forget to renew?
yes, lots of times. Because, how long do you want to wait 10 years, So usually within 5 years, they try to figure out if you have assets and then they move on. So I would say, if I had to pick up a number, I would say 40% will renew. 60% will not renew. I've seen a lot more people that don't renew. Because they're tired of waiting for 10 years. Do you think they want to wait another 10? They hate seeing your name on their screen, believe me. So they're like, oh, this person, yes.
One more follow-up question, Rebecca. Okay, so that creditor just found out that you buying a house. Like I told you, it was to 12, so already, can they file again because they cannot do it because it's over 10 years?
If it's more than 10 years, they're done.
Okay.
Yeah, and that date starts from the date of entry of judgment, which will be on the history. It's gonna say May 16,
Okay,
2014.
Yeah.
So if it's more than 10, they're done.
thank you.
Okay, so let me go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm gonna now switch and talk about how trusts work, okay? So, I was gonna actually, show you something. I'm gonna go back for a second. Let me go back. I'm gonna take a seat for a second and jump on the internet. So I'm gonna show you, it's not on these slides. Okay, so. Okay, so there's a part of my slides that I forgot to put in, but it's fine. So I will show you now I'm gonna go on the internet. Okay,
Person one is using it.
person one, this one?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I'm gonna send you this link. Am I emailing you? I guess, yeah. So, and she could share the link with everyone. I'm just gonna Google Central District Bankruptcy Court, okay? So let's take a look. It's right here. So this is the bankruptcy court's website, all right? On this website, let me see. Okay, I see someone on the Zoom asking, do we get this PowerPoints? Yes, Diana, you'll get the PowerPoints. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure I'm sharing so the Zoom people can see. All right, for the Zoomers, you can see this information too. This is the bankruptcy court's website. Whenever you see on MLS that says subject to bankruptcy court approval, that always scares people. They're like, oh my God, I don't know what that means. Show me the next property. Now you're not going to be scared anymore, okay? It's just a basic auction, okay? When you think about an auction, you just come to bid. So I'm going to show you where these properties are located. The main thing I've always wondered is, why is this information so hidden? I never knew the answer. So this is the bankruptcy court's website, all right? You come all the way to the bottom. This little tab that says sale of estate property right over here. When I click on this, it's going to show me which bankruptcy sales are coming up. This is a list that's updated weekly. So I'm going to show you a couple of them. Let's right click, open a new tab. I'm just going to open some of these randomly. Let's take. No, it's just sorted by date, by sale date. So we have sales coming up in May. So I'm just going to open some of these so I can show you what they look like. Okay, now before I show them to you, the way a bankruptcy works is whenever a company or a person files bankruptcy and they cannot keep their home, there's a bankruptcy trustee, just a person that's appointed to say, okay, go and sell their home, to pay off their credit cards. So when you can't keep the home, the bankruptcy trustee will sell it. And they have to go and find a buyer, have one buyer, and then they will have a sale date, which is the auction date. So the trustee goes to the bankruptcy court and says, I found one buyer at least to buy this property. Then they'll have an auction and say, does anyone else want to come to the auction to overbid? And if no one comes, the judge will say, great, sold to this one buyer, okay? And the prices I'm going to show you, they're very interesting prices. The bankruptcy trustee has to sell the property for at least the value of the loan. So if you have $1 million property, but the loan is $400,000 to pay off Wells Fargo mortgage, they have to sell it for at least $400,000. That's where the bidding will start. Then they will add about, let's say 10 to 20%. So the trustee will be paid. They can use the money to pay for closing costs and get some money for the credit cards and then close out the case, okay? So I'm going to show you how to read these notices. So, and they're all kind of standard. There's a whole bidding procedure. So let's take a look at this first one. Actually, I'm going to jump to this. Okay, let's take a look. All right, let's start with this first one. So this one is a company called Via Escuela Consulting. There's a property being sold on 3193 Budao Avenue and sorry?
It's a rental right here.
Yeah, El Sereno.
Okay. So it's very close by.
Yeah.
And over here, this attorney didn't attach it, but there's ways to get what's called the bidding instructions. How do I participate? Now, don't be afraid of lawyers, okay? We're actually pretty nice people, okay? This attorney, she's very nice. This is a woman, Onyin, I can't say her name, but I call her Miss Anyama. So all you have to do, you just have to email them and say, there's a property here that's going, the foreclosure date is May 27th. How do I get the information on it? That's all you got to say. She will send you what's called the bidding instructions that says, if you want to participate, this is how much down deposit you need. This is the sale date. And then in that document, it'll all say, what's the bidding increments? Are you gonna go up $5,000 if so it's gonna be very detailed information. And it's also gonna have the Zoom information. So it's not even in, you can actually go to the courthouse, which is in downtown. So on May 27th at 1 p.m. is gonna be the auction. But I would bet they already have one buyer in place, okay? So if you go May 27th at 1 p.m. to this courthouse, you can participate in that auction. You can get information on this property by contacting Ms. Anyama and say, can I get the bidding instructions? So, and you can also participate by Zoom. So you just have to say, can I get the Zoom information? What I usually tell individuals or agents that are new to this, you're not familiar with this, there are so many of these happening. Just attend one of them by Zoom, okay? Just like they're doing right now, just attend. You'll see the judge, you'll see the buyer's agent, you'll see the trustee's agent. They're going to say, we have this property. The judge will say, okay, what's the price? $650. Are there any bidders in the courtroom or on Zoom? No. Okay, sold. It's very easy. And
I have a question. Does it
please.
is there a fee to be be in this type of public auction, or can we just all go in and view and do the viewing of the auction?
You can attend the auction. I don't think I caught your question. Can you say that again?
I'm sorry. This is Jimmy. Is there a fee to view the auction, or you can just publicly go online and watch it? Yes.
No, it's free. No, it's free.
Okay, great.
Yeah. No, there's no fee.
Can FHA loans, veteran loan, VA loans do? Can agents that are that have clients that have those type of loans, can they go and try and apply, or is that?
Yes,
Yes?
that's a very good question. So when it comes to financing, the financing needs to be ready to go if you're gonna bid and close at the auction, okay? So this isn't one of those, 45-day escrow ideas. You need to have a very good buyer, okay, who's qualified, and the lender will say, okay, this is the property you want to bid on. Okay, we will give you up to, I'm going to make up a number, 500,000. If you win at the auction, then they will just record the deed of trust when you close escrow. So the lender is there ready to give you the money if you're the highest bidder, okay? So most loan officers know how this works, this isn't one of those that you're guaranteed to get the property. Maybe you're not going to win the bid, okay? But there are lenders who are willing to lend. They're basically on standby saying, oh, you won? Great. Here's the loan. The money goes to the trustee and you close escrow. The escrow process is the same. It's still closing costs. Everything else is the same. So yes, you could do it through FHA, but your clients just have to be ready to go. It's not, let me go to the auction. Oh, I won the auction. Now let me go apply for FHA. No, the trustee will say you have 5 days to close. Otherwise, we're going to the next bidder. So you got to be ready. Give me 1 second. Let me show you some other ones. So here's another one. This is attorney Kevin Tang this is a person that filed bankruptcy. Hung Nguyen is the debtor. They have a property being sold in Garden Grove. The bid price is $660,000. Let's see if they attached. So over here, this one gives a little bit more details. It says the overbid is going to be just $10,000 more. So it's going to go up in $10,000 increments. You need $19,800 in certified funds. And yeah, you can do your due diligence. You can go appraise the property if you want, but you got to do it before the sale date. So, and all you got to do is just contact attorney Kevin Tang and say, I got someone interested. Can I go do an appraisal? So they will work with you. Okay. So, so that's another notice. I'm just going to show you some of these. This is attorney Richard Baum. This company called Western Regional Properties. Sale date is coming up, 4/29. Now look what they're selling. They're selling a tenancy in common ownership, what we just talked about. So now you don't know if it's 5 tenants in common, but if you want to participate and be an owner of this property on Westlake Avenue, maybe it's a big commercial property. I don't know what it is, but if it's a big commercial property, you can buy a tenants in common ownership, a part of it, for $540,000. Well, that's the proposed sale price. So over here, when they say all cash, no financing contingencies, this just means don't start the financing contingencies on the sale date. Have your financing ready to go if you're the highest bidder. The lender will then close when you buy the property. Does that make sense? It's basically you have the lender ready before you attend on April 29th. Yes,
Saying to buy a tenancy in common, that mean you're gonna go in with the people that are already there?
the people are already there.
So then they're not bankruptcy, like foreclosing on all the owners?
No, no,
So just,
only that person. Or only the interest that's held by Western Regional Properties. Now, you don't know if it's 10 people. I'm sure Kevin Tang knows. Say, hey, how many people are there? But you know what's the cool thing? I mean, obviously, if you win, is
3,000.
correct.
60, so you're buying.
That's a different property.
No, that was a different property. So that's a different property. So, and then this attorney will tell you. So again, you can ask this attorney for the bidding instructions. They will just send it to you. Is it going to increase by 10,000? They will send you the Zoom. They'll say there's the details. So you can get a lot of information. Where I think people get afraid is to contact attorneys. Don't be afraid to contact attorney Richard Baum and send him an email. Say, I got a buyer who's interested in a property. Can you send me the details? Okay.
So with the tenancy in common, there's proportions, right? This interest as much as, so he's buying it that 540 worth of it, and then the other
Correct.
one's like 540. Everybody owns a.
Well, you don't know what the other, maybe someone is 66%.
Oh.
So yeah, this one unfortunately doesn't say, is it at 18%? But it is something, so, and then I'm going to get to your question right now. And then one of the cool things is once you buy it, you can then know who the other owners are and say, hey, I'm your new partner now, So this is probably a multifamily property. Yes,
Do buyers have a chance to do physical inspection?
yes. There are certain, I don't want to say deadlines, there's certain restrictions on doing inspections. No, everything is ready to go on April 29th. This is the date. So you got to have your financing in place. If you want to do it, you tell Mr. Baum, I'd like to do an inspection. Okay, go do your inspection. You are ready to go on April 29th when you show up to the courtroom. And you know what number you're going to bid up till, maybe the client will say up to 600
Beforehand.
before. Because once the judge slams the hammer and says sold, it's done. And the trustee will say you have 5 days to close escrow.
What happened if the buyer changed his mind?
Same in other real estate. You lose your deposit. Correct. You lose your deposit. And then
Can I ask about the tenants in common?
Correct.
Question? Let's say there are 5, okay. Is any clause on the tenants in common that says, do not involve this property in any personal debits or whatever to avoid, just to protect the other ones?
Nope. No,
Who does that, the deposit?
you can't. I understand what you're saying, but you're asking other people of how they should control and do what they want with their property.
Correct.
So it's like you and I buying something and saying, hey, let's agree for you not to sell it to your brother. I'm not going to agree to that. Agree you're not going to file bankruptcy in the future.
Yeah.
Well, how the hell do I know?
A good point.
Thank you. I wish my wife said good point to me too. 9 years, still haven't heard it. So here's another property, 4313 Hohen Avenue, Santa Rosa, 800,000. This one, she also did not put the bidding instructions. But going back to these notices, so you just got to click on them and see them. And obviously the cars are cars. So this list gets updated weekly, okay? Now, by the time the trustee has a buyer, let me go back to the other share screen.
How did they put an automobile there? They're foreclosing on an automobile?
They're selling an automobile in a
I
bankruptcy.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really was disappeared pretty too.
Yeah, so you could sell cars. I've seen movie posters being sold. There's a lot, if the value of the asset is good enough, I've seen jewelry sold.
Yeah, wow.
So, but real estate is very popular to be sold in a bankruptcy. So let me, okay, so I'm gonna get to this one, but look, by the time the trustee, the Chapter 7 trustee, or the attorney is involved, they're the first ones that know this property is going to be sold in a bankruptcy. So then they go and they find a buyer, okay, or the trustee will contact one of their listing agents and say, I got this property in Lancaster. How much you think it's gonna go for? Well, we think it's about 650. Okay, go find a buyer because I'm gonna set the sale date for August. So then the listing agent goes within their office and says, I got a listing. Does anyone want to buy a property? No. So the buyer, the first buyer is already there. The sale date, the auction date is more of like, I don't want to say like a circus, but more of a way to show the judge that we tried to get other buyers, but it's rare. And don't imagine the courtroom being filled with people, with paddles, no. I would say there's probably two people in there. The original buyer and another one from another agency trying to overbid, okay? And this is why I go around educating people because people don't know. They don't know how it's played. Once you do know, you're like, oh, wait, I'm gonna go and try to find that property and then buy it. So there are a lot of good deals. If I had to give you my opinion, it's mostly for investor clients. It's not first-time home buyers, okay? These are investor clients because once they close escrow and they bought a $800,000 property for $650, they're gonna go and fix up the kitchen and quickly flip it back on the real market. So these are for more investor clients that are looking to buy these properties. And it happens a lot. So when you see subject to bankruptcy court approval on MLS, it just means they're gonna have a sale date, there's bidding instructions, the bankruptcy court has to have this auction going on. So now you're not gonna be scared anymore, okay? Give me 1 second, I'll answer your questions. I've already talked about these judgments. So whenever a judgment is recorded on property, it looks like this. It's just a piece of paper. I know it's blurry for you, but it just says.
Okay, well, on yourself. It's in.
Oh, can you mute yourself?
Oh, sorry.
Mute yourself.
Can you mute yourself on Zoom, please? iPhone?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. There you go. Thank you very much. So now going back to some clients saying, we want to be involved in real estate. Are there any real estate deals? Sometimes the deal is not actually the property itself, but what loans are on the property that they can purchase. Second loans on properties, judgment loans on property, judgment liens on properties. It's not a loan. These are judgment liens. Now, another way you can participate in real estate and earn interest, okay, what other investors do, and I've done this with judgments, okay, so I speak from experience of how this works. It's very straightforward. Whenever there's a judgment lien on the property, imagine Aaron Balsrow, okay, he's just waiting for this property to be sold. If I call Aaron Balsrow and say, Aaron, does Amex have any judgments on properties that are more than 5 or 6 years old? Oh yeah, I said, I will buy it. You can buy judgments, okay? Just buying a debt. That's how collections work. Amex sells it to, Hunt and Henriquez. So judgments can be sold. So if this judgment is for $26,000 and it's been earning interest, maybe Amex will say, sure, we will sell you this judgment for 50%. So then I pay $10,000. Then they assign the rights to that judgment to me. And then you contact the homeowner and say, hey, you bastard, I'm waiting for you to sell this property, okay? They're gonna say, who the hell are you? I owe Amex. Yeah, but Amex sold it to me. So you can buy judgment liens, similar to how you can buy second loans on properties. Another thing that's happening, going back to what I started about the economy, the way foreclosures work is once you don't pay and it initiates foreclosure, there's an auction, it's sold. There's a lot of people that have second loans on properties, home equity lines of credit they forgot about. Now that the real estate market has appreciated so much, it's like $1 million, but the first loan, let's say it's $1 million property, the first loan is 400,000. So there's $600,000 of equity in the property. But if there's a second loan on the property, that loan has not gone away. I can't tell you how many times I've seen clients contact me saying, I got a letter about a foreclosure, but I pay my mortgage. What is this? And I look, I'm like, oh no, this isn't Wells Fargo. This is Countrywide from 2008. You guys remember Countrywide?
Yeah.
So I said, did you take a HELOC? And yeah, I did, but I thought it went away. What makes you think it went away? I stopped getting statements. That doesn't mean it went away. It means their vendor ran out of ink. Okay, but the loan is always there. So now what's happening is these second loans because now there's a lot of equity in the property, the second loans say, well, if we now go foreclose, there's enough equity to pay off the first, and there's enough money to trickle down to us in the second position. So I'm seeing a lot of second lien holders waking up and saying, you know, you haven't paid for 40 months, your time is up. So where the opportunity exists is what people call note buyers. They contact those second notes and they say, you've been waiting for 40 months, we will buy it. So there's investors that want to be in real estate, not so much own the building, but you can own the loan in second position. And that loan is not earning that friendly 6% interest anymore, because it's now earning the default interest rate, which is probably 18%. So that second loan has been juicing up a lot of money. And you can foreclose, you know, or you can settle and get some money. So the point to take away from this is there's other ways to be involved in real estate, by buying judgments, by buying old notes that homeowners aren't paying.
Now, how do you know that the second trustee is in default?
How do you know the second is in default?
Yeah,
Good question. How do you know it's in default? What happens when they want to initiate a foreclosure? What do you
notice
find?
of default.
A notice of default. So the notice of default is filed, but sometimes the second lien holder will be paid and then they will rescind the notice of default, saying, okay, you're good now. But if you see a notice of default, that's always a clue to me that says this homeowner is struggling to pay, especially in the economy we have now with layoffs, you know, student loans, repayments starting, gas prices. People are having a hard time affording their homes. So that's one way you can know. The other way is sometimes it's just luck. I don't know. People come and they say, I got this letter that says there's a foreclosure coming up. What foreclosure? I'm paid up, you know, but it's like, oh, it's actually the second loan from Countrywide. Yes.
Question, I've always been interested, I used to do a lot of short sales back in the day. And I always interested why when people file for bankruptcy, the second never got discharged, and then you will call and say, oh, you owe whatever amount of money. Why is that?
Well, liens don't go in a bankruptcy. So you can't eliminate mortgages on properties. So if you file bankruptcy with a house with 2 loans, you're gonna come out of bankruptcy with 2 loans.
Taxes and student
what-
loans.
Right, so what goes away is credit cards, unsecured debts, you know, medical bills. But you can eliminate judgments off of properties. So that's why people, after the bankruptcy, they're like, oh, I thought, no, you don't get to eliminate those. And I know you guys have questions. Sorry, I'm gonna come
Yeah,
back to you. Go ahead.
so working with the buyer, help them buy a foreclosed property. Who pays for the agent?
In a foreclosure,
Right, who pays for the agent fee?
so you're talking about the bankruptcy?
Purchase the property and from bankruptcy,
Well, the trustee will, the trustee is just the seller.
right?
So the trustee will pay the buyer's agent and his or her own agent. So you will be paid from the bankruptcy.
Not by the court.
No, not by the court.
No.
Yeah, it's just like a sale, except it happens inside a courtroom. Everything's the same. There's an escrow, there's a title company. So,
Question on the judgments.
yes,
Homestead, can,
I'm gonna get to homesteads. I think it's on my slides.
property tax liens too, that
Right.
they can force the
Right,
foreclosure.
right. So
So
if you don't pay
those-
property taxes,
Yeah.
you'll get property tax lien foreclosures.
And you
Yeah.
can also buy those property tax.
Yes.
liens.
You can buy property tax liens. So there's a lot of opportunity, not just for buying the building itself, but participating in the liens.
Mhm.
So now, let me, and then I.
May I make you apologize because I have a doctor appointment 2 p.m., which is here. If you sell in a house and a bankruptcy and people live on the house, do they have to have that 60-day notice and everything to move out or?
Yeah. No.
Exactly, it's everything the same thing.
Once the new buyer comes to buy it, you gotta give notice, you
All
know,
of that.
you are evicted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What
Sorry?
about if the tenant who lives at the property has a lease, a valid lease?
The lease is only good with the prior owner. And that lease is no longer effective. If I'm the new owner and you say I have a 10-year lease, that doesn't mean anything. Whose name is on the lease? yours and the previous owners, not my name.
Oh.
You and I don't have a lease anymore. We got 30 days. Get out. Unfortunately, I mean, I make a joke about it, but that's how people get evicted. And they don't know, like, wait a minute, the landlord filed bankruptcy? Yes, and the property was sold on May 29th.
Even in the rent control area?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So let me move on to,
So when you
Trust.
file bankruptcy like that, you do need to notify the tenant.
no, you don't have to notify tenants. They're gonna be very surprised. But
See, and that's the
But-
wrong thing.
but most of the time, it's not a tenant living in the home, it's the homeowner itself. Most of the time, but yes, if it's a tenant, then yeah, you could tell them, I'm filing bankruptcy. You know, the property may be sold.
And then if the tenant's there and they're finally, it's going to default, all this time they're paying their rent. That's kind of like cruel, that you're still elected.
Why is that cruel?
Because you're the tenant, the owner is already
Yes.
going into default, but the tenant's still paying that, it's in
Okay,
default.
and what are you paying for?
Well, to live there, but still, what
Right.
is he doing with the money? He's not paying the mortgage on it.
That's, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna say this in not a nice way, that's none of your business what I do with the money. You pay the rent to occupy this room. Yeah, and you occupied it, and now your 30 days is up. That's all rent is. So, it's just a temporary thing, yeah. So, now. Let me, I'm on a diet and being in front of pizza is very difficult. Walking back, no, it's fine.
Breathe through your mouth, buddy. Breathe through your mouth.
Coach. All right, let me now show you how trusts work. So similar to bankruptcy, where a lot of people kind of don't understand where the sales work, same thing happens in the trust world. There's a lot of misconceptions about what trusts do, you know, what happens in a trust, how do I find properties in a trust? In a trust is the best way to think about a trust. I'm going to use this box as an example, okay? So I'm gonna grab one of these, but I'm not gonna eat it. So think about a trust as nothing more than a box, okay? So, or think about a red suitcase. People always can imagine the color red. So think about a red suitcase. From today on, anyone, whoever says the word trust, imagine a red suitcase. That's it. So this is a red suitcase. All the trust is pretend this is my home, okay? So if this is my home and my name is on it, it says Gorginian on the deed. So I own it because I'm touching it. Now, all the trust is I create a trust, which is a box. This box says Domino's, but imagine it says Gorginian Trust on this box. All I do is I take my my house. I'm gonna put it over here so you guys don't touch this one. All I do is I put this inside my box. That's it. So it's no longer in my name. All I own is this box and everything inside this box. What else is inside this box? Let's say I have an LLC, that's also in here. My jewelry's in here. My business is in here. My cars are in here. So as I go through life and I buy another property, when I go to close escrow, I tell the escrow officer, put the title in the Gorginian Trust. Okay, goes in there. So when I die, this box closes just like this. So actually, before I die, this box is open, which means I can make changes. I could change my beneficiaries. I could put things in, take things out. That's called being revocable. If you hear the word revocable, it just means you could change it at any time. It's yours. When I die and I take the long dirt nap, okay? Some people laugh at that. Some people get offended at that. So when I take the long dirt nap and I die, the box becomes irrevocable. It closes. It's locked. No one else can make any changes to this. Everything inside this box now goes to my beneficiaries. My 2 kids will get it, and they will read my trust instructions that says, open the box, and you're going to share everything in there equally, okay? So that's all a trust is. Okay, I'm going to take out this one that I touched, throw it away. So that's all the trust is. The person who creates the trust is called the settlor, sometimes called grantor. The person in charge of the trust is called the trustee. The people who get the stuff inside the box are called the beneficiaries. Now, during my lifetime, I am the trustee of my own trust. It's my trust, it's my box. After me, my kids become the trustees and the beneficiaries, okay? So this is as simple as it is, okay? So anytime you think about, hey, is your property in a trust? Just imagine their home is inside a box. And if you look at the title, it's gonna say Savan Gorginian, trustee of the Gorginian Trust. So that's all it is. So let me show you a little bit more details about how this operates. Oops. Let me now ask you a question. Now you know how trusts work. So if you have created a trust, you're the settlor, you're the trustee of your own trust, and you've named your kids as beneficiaries or whoever else. Have you ever created a trust involuntarily? Has anyone ever forced you to create a trust? Does someone come to your head with a gun and say, sign this document and create a trust and put me as a beneficiary? Some people think no. When you buy properties for your clients, or if you have bought property, has anyone ever forced you to create a trust and name them as a beneficiary? Who thinks yes, who thinks no? It kind of sounds like an evil world. So most of you say no, right? No, you can't force me to create a trust. When you buy a home, the homeowner is going to be called the trustor. On this document I'm going to show you, the beneficiary, it's not your kids anymore. The beneficiary is the bank. The trustee is Chicago Title, or a title company. So what document is this? What document have you seen with these same situations? There's a mortgage, kind of close. A deed of trust. Okay? That's why you see the word trust in it. So you have created a trust involuntarily, where the bank says, you're going to put that property inside a box. You're going to name me, the bank, as your beneficiary, not your kids. And you're going to name Chicago Title as the trustee, because we don't trust you being in charge. This is called the deed of trust. And when you don't pay your mortgage, the beneficiary, the kid, the bank, picks up the phone, calls the trustee, Chicago Title, and says, sell the thing inside that box and give it to me. That's how a deed of trust works. So that's why you see the word trust inside a deed of trust. So now you know what that word means, okay? So it's involuntary because people don't realize they're actually doing it, but you're creating a trust every time you close escrow. So these are the opportunities for you, going back about participating in real estate, but not actually the building, is you can buy judgments and second liens. Typically, you'll get a discount between 25 and 50%. You can purchase old judgments and second liens on properties. And old deeds of trust, I'm talking about those country ones that are old and they don't collect. They've given a significant discount up to 60%. So you can buy these old debts for a cheap discount. So this is from my website. So if you or your clients have any questions, on my website, there's details of our estate planning services. We charge $2,000 to create a whole estate plan package, okay? This includes the trust, the will, the medical directive, power of attorney forms. My office takes care of the recording. I don't trust anyone else recording. They messed it up once, so I do it myself. I physically go to the county myself. That's how paranoid I am, okay? So on my website, which you guys have it, you will see all of the pricing. You'll see how you do your trust. So, and then obviously we also have bankruptcy services as well. So I'm going to take some questions and then I got to rush back to the office.
But you said you were going to cover homesteads.
I'm going to cover homesteads, I promise. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Check
How
my
much
calendar.
is the homestead now?
So that's also on my website. Homestead, $200. So let me explain what a homestead declaration does now. So a homestead declaration allows you to protect one home from judgments, which is your home. I know that sounds obvious, but people say, I want one on my rental property. That's not your home, So I want it on my commercial building. That's not your home. I can't tell you how many times I have to tell that to clients. You get one home. So in California, you can protect one home from judgments. That's called the homestead exemption. And I'm going to tell you what the amount is for the homestead exemption as far as the dollar value. But let me start by saying how it works. You have $1 million house, okay? If you have a loan on it for $400,000, that means you have $600,000 of equity. If you sell that property today, you get $600,000, okay? That's your equity. Okay. If American Express records that judgment lien on your property for 100,000, well, now your equity gets less if you were to sell, because they got to pay off that second loan, which is the judgment. A homestead exemption, the homestead declaration helps protect against judgments. But the key is the homestead has to be recorded before the judgment is recorded. So whoever gets to the county recorder first will be able to be protected, okay? So does anyone know how much equity in a home you can exempt and protect from judgments? What is that dollar figure? What's the homestead exemption? I heard 600. What number did you say?
500.
500?
300.
300? So back in 2020 and 2020 and older, the amount of equity you could have as a single individual was only $75,000. That's it. If you were married, you only get $100,000, which means if the property were to be sold, the judgment would be paid. After 2020, they increased that limit. Now LA County is $699,000. You say 700,000. So you can have up to $700,000 of protection in a home. So if, again, going back to the math, if you have $1 million property, you have a $400,000 loan. But if you have recorded your homestead declaration on it, that means that 600,000 is protected. So when Aaron Baldero goes to record his judgment lien and the property is sold, the judgment lien is not paid because your homestead exemption covered the first 700,000. Now, if you have $1 million paid off property, you only get to keep the first 700,000. The other 300,000 is not protected. They can use that money to pay off the judgment. So it depends how much equity it is. Now,
The same for single and married.
So no
the
reason,
same for single or married, yes.
no reason to buy umbrella.
Well, I always recommend insurance. Always have insurance, please. Now, I will email someone a Starbucks gift card, or I'll mail it to you. I have it in my office. If you could think of a smart way from what I told you earlier. So I told you if it's $1 million paid off property, the first 700,000 is only protected and Amex is there with their judgment lien. And Amex is waiting for you to sell or refinance. So what would you advise your client, if it's possible, to do something so that judgment is not paid? Because they're going to say only the 700 is protected. But if
Put
you
your
sell or
home in a trust.
refinance, I'm sorry,
Put your home in a trust?
no,
The equity line.
I can't hear you. Did you say?
To call, David's before.
Sure, good, that's one. Call Amex before you list it, that's one. But if the judgment is only good for 10 years, and if you were to look on the deadline, you're like, oh my God, it just happens that Amex's judgment was 9 years ago. Maybe don't sell the property within the next year. Wait until the 10 year is up, cross your fingers, Aaron Baldero did not renew that judgment, and then you could sell it. That judgment does not need to be paid. You get to keep the full $1 million of equity. Okay, so this information provided just so you can kind of think a little bit more creatively, you know, how do we help our clients and things like that. So that's pretty much end of my presentation. You guys will get all this. Yes.
What if you're holding property in joint tenancy
What about it?
and one of them, they're coming after you for a credit card?
Yeah, it's only for your joint tenant interest, not for the other joint tenant interest. Only for your
So would they
joint.
be able to do a homestead too? Like they're
No.
forward
You
two
get
people?
one homestead for each property.
Is this cost to make a living trust?
Correct.
Right.
So, yeah, and then my office, I've designed a system where it's very simple. We can have it ready in 72 hours. There's 16 questions you answer on the questionnaire. You choose your own time from my office. I'm in Glendale, so you guys have to come out there. But that's pretty much it. So you guys will get these slides, and I'll also send the link for that bankruptcy court website because it wasn't on here. All right, let me see.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Have you brought
Oh,
business
you're
cards?
welcome. Sounds like the voice of God talking to me. Not a God.
No, I'm far from it.
Oh, there you go. I see you, Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay. Hello, Jimmy. We can all see you now. All right. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
It's a business card, I do too.
Oh, good.
We can
I have
bring a
some.
trash.
Here you go. I'll just leave it up here. There you go. Yes,
Isn't there two funds for a homestead declaration for single and two people or?
not anymore.
Oh, not
Not
anymore?
anymore. After 2020,
After 2020?
single, married,
Doesn't
all the
matter,
same.
just one.
Right.
That's why it's,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
yeah, so before 2020 was single, married,
Yeah.
and over 65, you
Yeah.
would get 175. So they got rid of all that. They said everyone gets 700.
Whereabouts in Glendale are you?
Pacific and Burchett. I'm in the building with the Inter Valley Escrow and Pacific Coast Title. Yeah. I have three offices in there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For having me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Definitely,
Yes.
ask me on, this type of
I just, no, I know you're busy, I just.
Have a good day.
Sure you received it, and
I
so,
that was so sweet. That was like, he gives me gift. Oh.
I'm happy for you, and I appreciate it.
Very
Oh,
intelligent.
no.
Yeah, this is what I'm supposed to work with you. I know.
Thank
the
you, Peter,
place,
for having
we
me.
clean,
Yeah.
we took picture, I have a lot box there, but we're waiting for the HOA to approve.
Okay, they take a little while, but it's gonna
Yeah,
happen. I'm hearing all kinds of HOAs all over are taking a little
It's
time.
not the HOA, it's the board,
Okay, the board of, yeah.
board of,
What do they call it?
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed part of this. I know what you're talking about.
they said that they have a first right of refusal.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's just their procedure, what they go through. It's not unusual. So yeah, and they take a little time, but I know it's gonna, you're so, it's, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. Awesome.
Oh, I wanted to talk to you about, somebody began to that listening in West Covina, I'm waiting for the.
That's a hot area.
No, but for some, remember I told you about the situation where, so basically the wife was the sole owner, but they're married, they're still married, and so we were- and he's the owner of the property. And so I'm very concerned about that, and I say, you know, but he's the owner, legally, he's the owner, he's on title, he was never removed. So, you know, so I was like, oh my God, it's a big legal settlement.
之前，因为那个是 MLS 上面，
Yeah.
啊，那个 destination， 他们上一次没去被黄的，所以那个人力在 lender 可以延 foreclosure。lender 这个 foreclosure 是 lender 是做的嘛，那没有人去 bid， 他就延了嘛。然后那个 lender 去延了，就在他延然后呢，我就发表我的这个，然后呢，
I took one about said do not add them to title because it says the property.
Exactly, yeah. No, just follow what that says and then just.
我一定要知道这个。
And you know, I have a question about. So when you out.
没有，那个他也可以被认吧。他如果说那个人冒充，对，你没有很多 offer， 你说很多 offer 很好笑。So I mean, so
I was never married, that's not legal.
对，所以呢，那个
They were married, but they got divorced, but they
我
never.
也要叫客人
He gave the
买
house
那
to
个
her, but it was never, he never
他会
removed
告诉
that.
的，
Yeah.
所以我也跟他讲，我那个 case 是 cash， 一定通常都是 cash， 所以呢，我就跟他说，你自己想好，你
But I will not give me
你
a
要
problem.
几个 over，
Okay, thank you.
对。
So I'm waiting for them to.
早上我们就跑到罗山就是那个 court 前面排队，然后到
That's the statement of
就我们
information.
就我们也有回家，然后其实我们心里有数，然后那个他不是说为了我们这一个房子在 court，
I want to do
好多房子，
Oh, I just did a body, I just did a,
等我们
I just, I did a light body, work, just like big.
live body.
Yeah, just like,
You
I'm like, it took me like 3 months, I mean, of course it's a story, it's a curve, it's a body
Curve,
weight.
but a body weight.
It's a body, and I only did the top, I only did the top.
I think, yeah.
I don't want the top part, the bottom I don't do, because I want that, I just want the fullness on the top, I don't want it all over.
I think.
And I don't want my hair to dry, so I just do the top, and I do it for like only 8 minutes, the first solution, and then they do the
Oh,
other
you
part
do
of
it yourself?
No, I have a salon. No, no, but I told them I don't want the long.
做了一个什么事情，
process.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that's why it's still soft, it's not burned, because I'm very. So.
I was watching Robert T. right there in Montebello. It was very nice. And you have some
没有没有，就
it's some Montebello on,
We have one on Second Street and we have one on.
Have you come out with the vinyl? I'll take it around to people that
Oh,
didn't eat.
girl,
Yeah.
we did,
It's a beautiful house. Thank
gorgeous,
you.
gorgeous.
So, do you know, I walk every day.
Yeah,
All the way to him.
So when you gonna download his info?
And there's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Next to the patio house. The main next to the